Raelene Castle, it is such a delight to sit down with you. Thanks for coming to my hilarious house.
Well, it's such a beautiful part of Auckland and it's so leafy, and I struggle to get a park because I think everyone's come to this part of the world.
It's because my bloody son is selling cars. Driveway's full.
I love entrepreneurial.
Oh yeah, he's hard at it. Yeah, it's good, but it's you have to buck the trend, which is something you're not afraid of.
There's a couple of examples of that.
All right. Oh my Lord. Okay, for people who don't know, I haven't put earrings in.
Oh no, disaster.
It is a disaster.
Do you want to stop and do that?
No, I'm going to go nude ears.
Can't even see mine and I feel naked if I haven't got earrings on.
I know, I feel so naked without earrings.
Go on then, go get them quick.
Okay, it's just
Earrings on.
Earrings on.
Raelene, for people who don't, basically, I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking there are people who 100% know who you are. And there are people in the corporate world and people in the sports world and people in the world at large who love sports and business. So that's a huge cohort, right? So the people who don't know Raelene Castle are perhaps people who sport's not their thing. It's not their language. And they haven't paid attention to particularly who's running what, where. But you came up through Telecom and Fuji Xerox and another company as well, whose name escapes me.
BNZ.
Exactly, a bank. Brilliant. And you ended up as a 36-year-old woman being the CEO of Netball New Zealand at a pretty incredible moment in its history. And I wonder if you'd paint a little bit of a picture there, because here you are, you've got, I should get you to say this, right? You've got this incredible sporting home life. Can you tell me, with your father Bruce and your mum Marlene, one's representing New Zealand in league, one's representing New Zealand in the Commonwealth Games at lawn bowls. What is sports just like breathing in your upbringing?
Yeah, it was our religion. Yeah, it was. And my younger brother, Ryan, and the four of us, it was what we did. It was outdoor, it was activities, it was swimming, it was beach, it was formal sport. We both played lots of formal sport. But it was our, deep discussion over dinner. It was how we engaged. But I think it was also our learning platform. I think that's the piece that I'm such an advocate for sport or orchestras or art or music, whatever it is that creates those communities of engagement that young people outside of their family unit can learn so much from. And sport gives you that. It gives you an opportunity to win, to lose, to compete, to be selected, not selected, to have to dedicate yourself to something, commitment.
Yeah, I noticed the banks employ elite athletes. So I emceed for a bank for ages, and they were very keen on high-performance sports people because of, I guess, the practice of the discipline of how you prepare yourself for your sport and your code. I like hearing you say that it could be an orchestra, so it could be music or art or sport. You're not saying sport is better than every other learning platform. You're just saying sport is a phenomenal learning platform.
Yeah.
And as a person who wasn't confident, I as a young person, not physically confident at all, so didn't have sports confidence. It wasn't until my later years that I really kind of feel like I fell into a true appreciation of sport and games, because it's a universal language where you might not be able to talk to somebody else, but you can play a game together if you both know the rules.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why football around the world is that universal language, because it's easy, it's simple. You don't need many, apart from a ball and a couple of T-shirts to mark out the goals. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can rock up and say, hey, can I join in with you? You'll kick about in football. And everyone goes, yes, that's fine. It's when you move cities or towns or countries, it's a chance to turn up and join the local sports club. There's a structure and a system, and you know what you're doing and you can be included. So as that, all of those benefits and upsides are important, so too is the more casual engagement we have now with physical activity, the yogas and the Pilates or walking, the benefits of being out, your feet in the sand, your grass, all of those things. The benefits of physical activity, whether it's a social connection or whether it's the health benefits, it all adds up to a really positive story.
Well, it's massive. And you talked about, in one interview I heard, you talked about basically sport being transport. You cycled places. So you're exercising, you're moving, you're outside. So when you say sport is a language, it's quite true.
Yeah, and I think it's become more so because we in New Zealand are known around the world for our organised sport. So we're very successful on the world stage, and what you'd call the rugbies and the crickets and the netballs and the tennises, and it makes us sit up and listen. But golf, Lydia Ko, what a star, Dame Lydia. But actually, it's also now in the everyday narrative about the health and wellness story and the benefits we know that we get from being physically active is also a really strong and important conversation.
Well, no, it's phenomenal. It's profound. So my father has Parkinson's, and we've been told exercise, physio, it's the best medicine for him. Depression. Lots of science now behind the fact that meds and movement comes out tops. Meds and movement, woohoo! So it's not necessary that you have to choose one or the other, but movement is always beneficial. And people have a lot of issues with exercise. We've got this hang up with exercise or with being a sporty person, so we know movement and exercise is profoundly good for us, and yet we're resistant in so many ways. Like, what do you walk the talk? Do you move your body?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I'm always thinking I should do more. When
welcome to humanity.
All in that situation.
Yeah.
Busy life and jobs and flying around and doing all those things. And I'm not always as disciplined as some of my mates are, but I do, and I enjoy it, and that connection and value and how I know it's good for me is really important.
You look exceptionally gloriously tan as I sit before you wearing your green dress. Where did you get away to this summer?
So we're fortunate to have a place at Whangamata.
Oh, awesome.
And so for me, that complete and utter engagement with nature, sun, surf, sand, walking.
So you take your
swimming,
shoes off,
feet
walk everywhere.
Being really, and then sitting under a pūtakawa. We're lucky to have pūtakawa, and so sitting under that on a beanbag with a book and actually reading and taking that sort of big deep breath in. For me, reading is the only time my brain stops and actually concentrates on the story, because like even an audiobook, your sort of brain goes off and you can still do other things. But when you're actually in a really great book, that's when you stop and your brain gets a chance just to only think about engaging in the book. So I find it is my probably best stress release. Little nana nap in the afternoon and a read of my book, if I'm having a busy time, is for me is really valuable and important.
And you do fall into the world, don't you, of the story? What's your genre of choice?
I read all sorts. I read sort of murder mysteries, life challenges, some non-fiction. I'm not a science fiction or a fantasy person. I'm a bit too, as if that's not real. So I'm not very good. People are like, what do you mean? I was like, well, that's not going to happen, is it? So I'm not very good at that. So I do like those
complex murders.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Get to the end of it, solve it, what's going to happen. I tend to be much more in that sort of space. And sometimes I read absolute garbage as well, just because I just know that I need, know that this is going to have a happy ending. I don't need to think about it too hard. That's kind of where it's at. So a lot of things, always have a book on the go, read a lot more when I get some quality time. But it's a really important part of my sort of stress management.
So it's interesting even that we're talking about like exercise and stress management kind of early up, right? Because these are things that whether we're leading Sport New Zealand, which only you are, nobody else in the country is, or whether you're doing what I'm doing, which is, making a podcast, which I adore, or running a household or working wherever, there is stress involved in being alive in the 21st century. We're in the 21st still, eh? Good. I'm glad we haven't changed that on me. It's like, imagine it was the
22nd. It'd be awkward, wouldn't
it? I'm not stressed at all. So you've talked about high performance sports since you became CEO of both, High Performance Sport New Zealand, having its Me Too moment where we go, actually, we can't keep running high performance athletes and sport like we used to. Who the person is who is performing on that stage, wherever it is, a field, a stadium, they count, whether they're playing sport or achieving their sport, or whether they're living their life. They're actually not separable, those two people. So can you tell me how you stay well as a high-performance CEO?
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think that the thing is working out what works for you, because not everyone, like I've got some colleagues that unless they do their hour of exercise between 6 and 7 in the morning and they do it 6 out of 7 days a week, that is the thing that is absolutely right for them. For me, some exercise is important, some genuine connection with my friends and whānau who don't care what I do for a living, and just I can just be Raelene and engage with those people. As I've said, some time reading, having some downtime, quiet time, having I do subscribe to a Sunday afternoon catch up nana nap. I think is really important for me. But it's working out what does it for you, because not everyone's the same. And I think life's got so busy that we're a bit addicted to the adrenaline of being busy. And actually, it's actually okay to take a Sunday and go for a walk, have a coffee, read the paper, read a book.
How quickly did you figure out what you needed to do for you? Because I agree, there's not a one size fits all.
Well, I think it changes with age too. That's the other thing. It does
change.
It doesn't,
It doesn't stay that you don't go, oh, I've unlocked me.
That's
now
right.
I carry
and that's
on.
the way it is. And it's different because your partner's interests might be different as well. So they might be really interested in doing X, Y, Z. So you need to fit time in to do the things that they want to do, or they're really supportive, or you do things together, or you like doing things separately. So it's not a one size fits all. But I think the ability to actually take a breath and say, what do I need to look after my own well-being is really important, and
that may involve inconvenience and or cost and or a change of habit, right? Like there's good and stuff to work at. Like my husband and I do yoga together in the morning, and that's been massive. Now we're not religious about it, but when we're doing it, it's better than when we're not doing it. And I've played pickleball with a friend, and I want him to play pickleball with me. He plays croquet, and he wants me to play croquet with him, but we can't necessarily do all of it, right?
No. That's right. But getting to the end of the week or looking forward, I think the most important thing is you can't worry about what you didn't do last week,
right.
But actually planning to think, in my next week, I've got these things going on, but I'm going to make time to do X and Y is really important.
Yeah.
That's an important part of managing it. And, for me, sitting with my really good girlfriends and having a glass of wine is really important. That's a really great, important connection for me.
Yeah, I'd love to take what you just said then and kind of squish it into people's souls. I'd just like to massage it into their beings, because I think even with exercise, you can be like, this is good and this is right, and there are scientifically proven benefits from this, and I must do it. And you can feel guilty if you don't. I've got a friend who just took up squash at 52 with her partner, and they're having a great time. They're joining a community who play squash, and she's making new friends and playing squash with them.
Yeah.
But it is, I think, a true challenge for some women to know or acknowledge, and of course for some humans, to go connection and that relational goodness of hanging out with people I like and who like me is as important as moving my body through space. What are you like if you don't connect with your mates for a few weeks?
I'm terrible. And I was only saying this morning that the 4-month lockdown that we had, where I worked in my dining room and did Zoom calls for 8 to 10 hours a day, and literally, rinse and repeat, got up, had breakfast, went for a walk, came and sat at the dining room table for 8 hours, cooked dinner, went to bed, woke up and did the same thing for 4 months, nearly drove me insane. That is just not who I am as a human. So that connection, the engagement, I'm at the sort of very extrovert end of the scale. So that's where I get my energy from, is engaging with people and being in a room and laughing and joking and asking how their families are and how's your dog and, did you win your game of whatever you played last night? That to me is that sort of energy that I collect and connect. And when I don't have that, I find it really difficult.
Yeah. And then you're not functioning as well as you could, right? It actually just changes the fabric of how and who you are and what you're like to deal with. I just think, how do we see sometimes that social connection that isn't necessarily an entertainment distraction. So yes, scroll, listen to an audiobook, watch a TV program, go to the movies, la la la. There's something about just that what we all call IRL now, in real life, that face-to-face kanohi ki te kanohi, there is magic inside of it. But for me, it's like it falls off the to-do list. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the first cab that just gets left behind.
It doesn't for me, and I will have the opposite, which is Greg and other colleagues will say to me, do you really need to go tonight to do that? Do you really need to go and have that catch up? Do you really need to catch up with those people? And the answer for me is yes, I do.
Yeah.
Because that's actually where I get my sanity. And because you can work and work and work, and that's great and add value and do what you do, but actually when you finish working, that's not what's going to be there. It's those people, those relationships, those stories that will be there to support you.
Yeah, and in reflection, it was COVID that really kind of clarified for me that deep, profoundly good need for connection, where I now prioritize my friends way more. I like literally and ring them for no good reason, just to tell them I love them or to say how are you. Whereas before I think I was waiting for an excuse to call them, like, oh, you know, they weren't on the to-do list. This podcast is for people in a certain season of life, and it's really cool having anybody and everybody listen to it, including the fellas. Welcome, fellas. Welcome, guys. But you're 54 and I'm 52. Can I ask, how is your perimenopause, menopause journey? Do you know where you're at, or what stage has it impacted you? Are you like, phooey, it doesn't really exist?
Oh, no, it exists. And I think we need to look into it and make sure that we're supporting women to go through it, because the range of experiences that women have is from mild to very serious. And in where you move into senior executive roles in your 50s, actually giving women the space to be okay and, you know, have to look into the challenges of being mid-sentence and forgetting what you're going to say, or, you know, needing some time off to make sure that you're getting the support that you need is really important and leaderful. And I think the conversation that is coming to the fore. I don't know if you've seen over the last sort of week or so the book that Naomi Watts has written.
Yeah, I've heard
and
about it.
Billy Crudup and her husband, and the first time she had, you know, sex, and she had a hormone patch on, and she was freaking out, and he was just he said, "Honey, we're the same age. What, like, how can I help you?" So that's what he said to her, and you go, wow, how amazing is that? So the fact that we're bringing those conversations to the fore, I think, is important. I'm through the end. I was very early. Through the process, I was mild. I've been pretty fortunate. But that all comes back to, for me, not being able to have children and going through that process earlier than people that perhaps have been through it. So I had a probably different and earlier journey than some of my girlfriends at the same age.
Do you feel comfortable talking more about that? Like, did you have any idea what was going on?
I don't know. I just I had so Greg and I wanted to have a family. It wasn't happening naturally. Tried to have IVF. We went through one round of IVF, and a doctor, amazing doctor, said to me, "We got through one round without making you sick. I'm not sure that we could do that again, and your chance of getting pregnant is probably about 5%. So I'm really not sure that's for you." And that's a really hard thing for someone to hear that. Like, when you think your life's going to be mainstream, you're going to meet someone fantastic, want to have kids with them, and when they look at you and say that's a really, really big moment. And my view, you've got two choices then, right then and there. You can either shrivel up in the corner and feel sorry for yourself, or you say, right, I was clearly put here to do something else. And so I took that path. And
you're allowed a couple of minutes in between that, though. You could possibly shrivel into the corner and then get up 5 days later.
No, you're right. And I think as part of the process, having IVF and not being successful, they put you through some counselling and give you a chance to look at it and consider whether adopting something that you might want to do.
Yeah.
And you know, that's interesting. Like, people say, "Oh, why didn't you adopt?" And one, actually, at our age, we were considered mature.
What age were you, ish?
37, 38. Greg was 43. So the only option was international adoption. And as weird as this will sound, I could get my head around arranging for a nanny for my own children, but I couldn't get my head around bringing young people, babies from overseas, putting them through that trauma of being adopted, changing countries, and then saying, oh, and by the way, the nanny's going to look after you. Like, that just was illogical to me.
I hear what you're saying in so much as the deep and profound connection of potentially your own biological children and you know that you are, their start is solid enough for them to handle a nanny during work hours, right? Whereas an adoption scenario is more tender and more complex, and that has even a precursor of some issue or rejection or inability to care for that child in another environment. So they're already in a vulnerable space.
Yes.
So that makes perfect sense to me.
Mm.
Was it, how long did it take you and Greg to go, okay, that's it? Because I guess if they'd said, look, we might be able to get you pregnant, or it might be okay, it would have been harder than them saying you've got a 5% chance.
Yeah. And those are that's the discussion. Those are the discussions that we had, and ultimately decided that we we're really fortunate to have an amazing niece and nephew, and who Riley and Finn, who with my brother and sister-in-law have been, Ryan and Paula, deeply generous in the understanding of us not having kids, how important the relationship with them is, and being really caring and generous in the opportunities we've had to engage with them. And like we said to them, we'd like to take them to Disneyland, and they allowed us that experience to share that for the first time with Riley and Finn, to go to Disney World in Florida. And, that as parents, they went, that's an experience I'd like, but actually I can see how that would mean to you guys. So the generosity of spirit and care and love that they had for us as a wider whānau unit, to be able to, genuinely believe that would be good for the niece and nephew as well. But actually that, that's really special to be able to have those relationships.
And that reminds me actually of, in studying Te Reo Māori, an auntie is a whaia keke, which is an armpit auntie. It's an armpit mum, and a matua keke is an armpit father, and their auntie and uncle. But in the practice of it, most people call their aunties matua and whaia. They call them mum and dad. So I guess there is that aspect where you are whaia and matua to your niece and nephew in a way that is beneficial to both and to the whole group, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's we've been lucky that that's the approach that Ryan and Paul have taken, and we have a great relationship. They've just they rang me and said, could we go and stay in your batch in Whangamata for 4 months? We're going to work over the holidays.
For 4 months, awesome.
And we're going to get jobs in Whangamata, and we're going to live our best lives living in your batch and working, as in the holidays. And it's like, well, that's brilliant, because when we go down, we've had lots more special time with them.
So
we've
cool.
been able to do that and engage in ways that, mum and dad, Ryan and Paul, are actually living in the States at the moment. So, we've had different connections for different reasons, and, those are important. But, I suppose you craft your story or your engagements because of the outcomes of not being able to have your own children, means that you're looking for other ways to engage and support with young people, because, I'm a great believer that connection into that generation is important to stay relevant and connected, particularly when you're leading, so that you actually understand what the conversation and the trends of that younger generation is.
I've heard talk recently of reverse mentorship, where you have young people hanging out with leaders, and it's reverse mentorship.
Yeah, and that's what I've actually did that formally. I recruited Arizona Ledger, who's an amazing young woman, Polynesian descent. The very first time I saw her speak, Sport New Zealand asked her to do a speaking gig, and she talked about how the older generation weren't actually listening to the younger generation, and how they had relevant voices and important commentary, and we should be doing a better job of listening. She had some environmental commentary, she had some Indigenous commentary. It was amazing.
So quite a challenging kōrero.
But I said to one of my colleagues, I said, I think she's just punched me in the face, but in a really polite way. in a super articulate, like incredibly, like, oh my goodness way. And anyway, so I reached out to her and said, would she be my reverse mentor? And she was like, yeah, great. So we did that for 12 months, and I think she's actually shifted to Aussie to work, which is awesome for her, and we'll stay connected. But yeah, that ability to connect back and listen to the voice of that generation as you're a leader, I think is really important.
So there are 3 threads I want to follow while the helicopter outside is just following one in the neighbourhood.
Hopefully it gets the bad guys.
Hopefully. One of the 3 threads is the reverse mentorship and listening. As a woman leader, you often aren't taken seriously until you're older anyway. Like somebody said to me, listen, there's no rush, when I was saying what my daughter's finished uni and she's looking for a job, that she said there's no rush. She's not going to be taken seriously anyway until she's older in some ways. So I think that can happen for young, attractive women. You're just a bit, I don't know, just...
Do you think it's changing though? I think
I hope so.
Well, I think the voice and the platforms and the mechanisms that young people have for their voices to be relevant now is so different. So the hierarchical nature of when we started working was the CEO was the CEO, you didn't talk to them, and then the senior manager was the senior management, and you were the intern and you made the coffee and you swept up and tidied up and you spoke when spoken to. It's just not like that in the corporate world. And you've got 25-year-old influencers making millions of dollars because they find a way through social media platforms and to be important and relevant. And so the leadership of today can't just be hierarchical and do and say what they need. They need to be listening to that youth voice and engaging and be much more open-minded to those connections and people. So I actually think I won't say it's easier, it's different. Yeah. And I think there's different opportunities now for young people to express themselves and start businesses and be relevant, even more than there was when 30-odd years when we were that age.
I agree, and there's opportunity for young people to buy shares, and it used to be hard, right? So the barriers to entry are lowered. There aren't that many young entrepreneurs probably making 25 million. Like there are some, but there's some. I guess I wonder about, as women, we are so culturally distracted by how we look and if people like us and if we're wearing the right things. It's really easy when survival mode is not your modus operandi. Like for people who are fighting to pay the next bill, this is not their focus and this is not what their mind is full of. But for people in a middle socioeconomic area, young women, I think culturally we're caught up like we were. And does the person like me? Am I included? Am I going to will they think I'm mean to them? I mean, I don't think your personality type suffers from this in some ways, which is awesome, right? But I'm like, I would like to see young women come into their power, not power over, but into their own power and agency and confidence earlier. And so I'm wondering, like, I feel like I can take myself seriously now because I'm not looking for a breeding partner, and I'm not looking for you to like me or find me nice. I'm not that concerned about that. Probably still slightly do. But, so I feel like I can enter my own power in this season as a 50-year-old woman, right? I can take myself seriously. And so you can or not, I don't care. But I do. So how do we encourage young women, like, to know who they are, but also to not be distracted by stuff that isn't that important?
Well, I think it's incredibly difficult, and I'm not sure social media helps that. And I was only talking to the country manager for Lion Breweries this morning, and he asked me that very question. And I said, I think one of the things that corporates like him can actually, the service they can provide is providing that leadership skill and capability as you come into those environments. So what does good look like? How am I confident? How do I, lead successfully in multicultural environments? What am I, how do I be confident and own my own space? And that's not only benefiting the young person, it's benefiting the organisation.
So you're saying model the leadership you want to see, or are we
Well, I think it's, I mean, yes, I think that's true, but I think it is, you can't get away from the fact that if you want to be successful in whatever it is you do, it doesn't matter whether you want to be the best receptionist you can be, or the best EA you can be, or the best CEO you can be, or the best singer, or, whatever you're talking
Best
about.
volunteer, the
Best
whatever.
volunteer. You have to have a plan to be the best. What does that require? Does it require turning up, being dressed smart and appropriately? And I find it interesting that some of the people don't value dressing appropriately. And it doesn't mean, I don't mean designer labels. I mean just making an effort. Like we run a graduate program at Sport New Zealand. We have a whole lot of applicants, and people think it's okay to come in ripped jeans and a ripped jersey to an interview for a corporate job in a corporate organisation. So, I still, it doesn't mean you have to have expensive clothes, but actually having thought that you've made an effort to look like you're, appropriate, I think is part of that process, and having really good manners. I laugh, is one of the big questions we get asked now by young people is how many days a week am I allowed to work from home? Like in the job interview, the most important question you've got for me as someone in the organisation is how many days a week I can work from home.
No, that's not the most important question.
What are your values as an organisation? Is your focus, do you have an environment strategy for, climate change? Do you, what is your, professional development program so that I can learn and grow as quickly as possible? Can I have a mentor inside this organisation? Those are the types of questions you'd want young people to be asking. So, I think you can't get away from building resilience and confidence in young people. I think that's helping them, parenting aunts and uncles, whānau. And that's where I think not everyone has those family units like we did, in New Zealand 30 or 40 years ago, but that's where the conversation started today around some of those sport groups or music groups or art involvement. Allows you to have those spaces with older people to learn and grow from. Can't get away from the fact that you should want to be the best that you can be to be successful, because that's what helps your confidence. The best way to earn trust and confidence is be good at what you do.
We have one child who just, school's not their place, and I was like, they have to survive school, and then I'm like, that's too low a bar. Where can they thrive? And it was in water polo. So they were a really great water polo player and inside their club and school system, and they built confidence in that area. So you don't have to have this überall, confidence everywhere. You don't have to be confident everywhere. Even just being able to identify some solid ground that can eke out. It can flow out into other areas of your life.
Yeah, and that confidence that you've grown in water polo helps you give confidence in the other parts of your life that you might not be so confident in. So, finding it in one place, I think, helps you in other parts because you found a thing that you can hang on to. I can own that. I can be good at that place.
And I can see also that even within that, mentors are important. Like, we probably needed more mentors if he wanted to go, say, take that to another level. Because that's not necessarily my strength as a parent, is the administrative side of it. Mine's the comms and the hugs and the oranges at halftime.
But also sometimes you don't want that advice from your parents, right?
True.
Because it's like, what
do you know?
What do you know? Or I want it from someone that I have trust and respect for outside of that, or I might be curious or interested in. Or
who's an expert in the field.
Yes.
As a woman coming into the CEO role, you pivot, you and Greg recognise that your journey towards having your own biological children has not been fruitful. And you go, okay, my life has purpose and I was put here for something else. And you lean into that. What did that look like for you? What did you decide you wanted to achieve or do, or what leadership did you want? What kind of leader did you want to be?
So it was that time was during when I was CEO of Netball New Zealand, so it was right in the middle of that journey. So I think in some ways I was in the middle of a group of amazing women who had, in their own way, delivered on the world stage, delivered domestically, delivered to create the profile for netball in a country that talked about rugby, cricket, netball in the same voice. So that was a great, strong group to have around me during that time.
Had they had a female CEO before Netball New Zealand?
Yeah, when the one before me was so I wasn't the first. There was one before me, so that was great. And then, so that was good. And then after 6 years, I thought it was time to think about the next challenge or what was next, and got a phone call about going to Australia to be CEO of the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs and the National Rugby League competition. And, Greg and I could go on an adventure, and we could go and live overseas. And that required an incredible amount of support from Greg, because he'd been at the warehouse for 25 years and he had to leave that family that he had to come and support me, which is an amazing thing for someone to do. And off we went and had this, incredible adventure that had some really significant challenges, but, not least of which is leaving your family and your network that you think is established and you know how to get things done, and arrive in a city where you don't have that network is way more. That was a big underestimation for me.
And I hear you, right? I think we sometimes don't know what we don't know. And I look at David Shearer going into the leadership of the Labour Party, and he was on paper the perfect guy, but he was new to politics and didn't have the connections. He didn't have the network to support him in that role to get stuff done. So it is, for personally, when I'd been in media for a long time, 2011. So what? I'd been 20 years in media when I left TV3 and went to TVNZ to do their breakfast role. And you would have thought, I've got the perfect skill set, right? I'm in this organisation, now I'm going to take it to this organisation. But I didn't have a network at TVNZ. I had no support structure at TVNZ. My people weren't there. And that was a much more isolating and difficult proposition. I was also in journalism now instead of in entertainment. So there were a different, you changed code. So that was, I think it was it's the isolation and lack of network or support structure that has a profound impact. And you're changing country, changing code, and it's Australia.
Yeah, and it's Australia. Yeah. And, I was born there. And so, I owned that.
Yeah.
As
that's on paper.
It was only on paper.
Yeah.
Only on paper. But I owned it,
yeah,
because it was a part of the story and the narrative. I was born in Wagga Wagga, which is where the most famous Canterbury Bankstown Rugby League player Steve Mortimer was from. His nickname was Turvey. My dad was player coach at Turvey Park. So there was, I just owned all of those connections to try and make it look like it came with a story. But that's the thing, isn't it? It's pushing the boundaries. It's being challenged. It's thinking, I'd like to go and do that. Can I be successful? And if you don't try, you don't know.
And so is it okay to go and try and learn loads and it also be really challenging?
Well, I don't know that it's ever not challenging by the nature of how much change you go through. If you didn't find it challenging, I think that would be dishonest, because it is, because everything, it's everything from the simple things of where's the toilet and how do I make myself a cup of coffee, and what's the right driving route to go from the house that I'm living in to the front door of the Bulldogs, because there's 12 different ways I can go. What's the best way? When you've lived in Auckland all your life, you immediately know the right way to go, right? So you're intellectually getting challenged at a base level of those things, and then suddenly you've got 100 new names to learn. You've got things coming at you. They're writing stuff in the paper. There's a whole lot of curiosity about who you are, and you're the first female CEO. And so there's a whole sort of watch and wait. What's she going to do? How's she going to go? So, every day is difficult. But, as I describe it as, it's like when you start any new job, you drink out of the fire hydrant. The fire hydrant comes at you at 1,000 miles an hour. A whole lot of stuff goes flying past you. And over 3 to 6 months, you realise that's getting smaller and smaller, and it starts to become a bit more like a garden hose, or it might be a really big garden hose. But you realise you've captured a whole lot of that stuff as it's gone past. You just didn't realise that, because that's what your brain does, is it connects, and then it starts to collect and connects those dots. So the picture starts to form really well. But you have to recognise that's what it is, and that it is anxiety.
And there's nothing you can do. You can't turn the fire hydrant off.
You can't be an expert overnight. That's what learning's about. You can bring your baseline skills and experience, because that's why they've appointed you into the job, and be confident. I mean, I think, that sort of new leader thing is, I'm going to turn up and I'm going to sack someone on day one, really, to make a statement. I mean, what a bunch of bollocks. That's just
Trumpish.
But anyway,
yeah.
so that's not I think there's a time when sometimes you have to make some tough decisions if you go into a broken organisation. I've been fortunate in my 4 CEO roles to go into organisations that were stable, so you get a chance to listen, learn, watch, take some time before you start making some big decisions.
What do you love about leading?
I like setting a challenge and being able to achieve it.
For the organisation, for yourself?
Both. For the organisation and for myself.
The bigger the challenge, the better?
Not. I don't think, let's go, I'm going to go and look for the biggest challenge I can find and go and do it. I think sometimes it works out that way. I deeply enjoy helping people grow and develop on their own leadership or their own career journey through organisations, and the candidness and honesty with which you can have those conversations with people and see how they grow and develop as individuals, and actually saying to someone, I don't take this the wrong way, but I think it's time for you to leave this organisation. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, go fly. You've got the skills. Go off, be brave, go, have your own turn at being a CEO or a senior leader in those organisations. You'll actually, don't stay here because you love it. If you really want a career, this is the time. You've got to, I'd much rather someone came and said to me, I think it's time for me to leave and let me help you find the right opportunity, than that sort of, oh no, I can't talk to you because, I'm going to resign, it's your organisation. I'd much rather help them do that and transition. So, those are the things that I really enjoy.
They give you a buzz.
Yeah, totally.
And you've talked about your key people, your trusted advisors that you talk to through difficulty, through big decisions. Are you a trusted advisor for a cohort of people now? Are there people who you advise and you're their trusted voice?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's happened over time, is that people ring me and say, what do you think? I'm doing this. How would you go about it? How would you... and that's always... that's a real compliment when someone rings you and asks you, in those vein to share. In these types of roles, you tend to do it a lot every day because you're doing it inside the environment. But, Sport New Zealand has a connection into, 60 odd sports across New Zealand, a whole lot of local councils that are running sports programs, a whole lot of regional sports trusts. So you tend to be in and around those organisations a lot. That if you can share some learnings or how you've gone about things, then, that's great.
For somebody who's maybe building their career at the moment or changing their career or wanting to take on their next challenge, how did you find your trusted voices? Like, what did that look like for you to go? How did you did they choose you? Did you choose them? Did you identify them? Did you woo them? Did you cold call them? What did you do?
I think over time I've had a number of them, because I think sometimes the right person is the right time for that right situation. Mm-hmm. So there might not be the same person over 40 years. It might be 5 years and 5 years. I think it's a bit of both. I think there was a little bit of me asking someone, or it happens naturally that you ring and ask advice. The one thing I'd say, the biggest piece of advice, is that for someone who's a career long-term business mentor, is you want someone with shared values. Mm-hmm. And probably a similar style and approach. So what you don't want is someone, you're halfway through a challenge or a problem and you've started to do a whole lot of things, and then they go, oh my goodness, why did you do that? You should have done this and this and this. Because you're like going, I need you to help me build on and slightly correct course, but not start go, oh my goodness, you got it really wrong and you're back here.
And there are different styles of leadership, right? So totally. The way they might do it would be good for them. The way you do it's good for you.
And it doesn't make one right or wrong.
I agree with you.
Because I think
find a mentor that is your style and then
similar.
Okay, similar.
But
nice.
will also give you very honest feedback if you got it wrong.
So you are good with confrontation. When I talk to people about you, they're like brave, courageous, willing to debate, willing to disagree, willing to have difficult conversations, willing to go into the big issue and front foot it. Where did you get that from?
Certainly it was encouraged at home with mum and dad, like that good sort of debate. There'd be something on the news and we'd have a conversation. Was that good? Was that bad? Is that right or wrong? How did that work? Dad's best friend, who unfortunately passed away of a brain tumour when I was only 20, Dad relays the story of us being able to, sit on the lounge floor and debate an issue round in a circle and end up debating both sides of it, coming back to the middle. So I've just always really enjoyed that good, robust discussion. And I think the ability to play the issue, not the man or the woman. We're discussing the issue. What do we like about that thing? And, how do you talk that round? And I hope that I've always been prepared to evolve my position or thinking because someone's made a really good point. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. I really like that. Okay, let me include that in how I, might hold a view or a perspective.
Can we unpack that a little bit? Because what I hear you saying is when you're arguing an issue, it's not personal. When you disagree with somebody, it's not, I hate you. It's, I think differently about you on this topic. And I came across an Australian recently who said it's not personal, it's commercial. But they used that phrase, it's not personal, it's commercial, to sort of just tromp on people, I think, to just wipe certain relationships away. Whereas I believe that so often when we're discussing something or working things out, you might be really attached to your idea, but because somebody doesn't agree with your idea doesn't mean they hate you.
No, and if we go back to the conversation we had 10 minutes ago about how do we teach young people the difference between that, I think that's a really important part. So how do you build trust and respect in the group? So for me, the leadership team that we have, either was it Netball or Bulldogs or rugby or Sport New Zealand, the trust and respect we have to be able to debate an issue, for someone to bring something and say, this is what I think, and for us to all go, well, yes, we like this bit, but not that bit, or have you thought about this, or how do you, is not playing you as the person, it's playing the idea or the discussion or the recommendation that you've got in the middle of the table. It's easier when you've got trust and respect amongst the group and who they are. So someone's not feeling like they're sort of, still trying to earn that.
Yeah, they're not on eggshells, not walking on broken grass. So the shared values is really the base start point, right? Shared values is probably everything. Like I've heard it said about leaders, you can't go further than your values. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I think that's also the leadership job, to also call out that behaviour when in around that table or in your organisation, you can see behaviour where they're playing the man or the woman, not the ball, and actually say, whoa, hang on, let's back that up a bit. Actually, we are discussing this. This is not about,
What do you do as a leader who is confident to have conflict and who knows you're playing the ball, not the person? If the person you're talking to really feels like they're being attacked, like how do you cope with the fact that for some people it really is personal? If you don't like their idea, you hate them.
I think there's a follow-up conversation. So it might be that having left the room, enough EQ to recognise I can see that person, that situation didn't go well for that person. So being able to follow up with that person and say, actually, I thought you did a really good job of that today, or actually, I didn't think you did as good a job as you could have had. Did you think about presenting it like that? Or should you have bought that research that you had already had in your back pocket, but you did, so all of us want to be liked and respected and think that we're doing a good job. What we want is people to help us get there. And so that ability for that leader, that CEO, that senior manager, that group team leader to be able to help that person and say, next time you do, have you thought about bringing this and this with you so that you can back up your ideas or your view or your perception or whatever it is. It's helping them. And then you've got those other gnarly old people that it doesn't matter what you say, you're not going to worry them. So you probably don't have to follow up with them afterwards because they're okay. But, most people want to...
Do you want to be a gnarly old person?
Well, I think there's many people that think I am a gnarly old person.
I think I aspire to being a gnarly old person.
Yeah, one of the women that is one of my heroes and aspiration is Dame Lois Muir.
Yeah.
And she's an extraordinary New Zealander.
Now, you intersected with her. You were CE of Netball New Zealand. And was she president of the board?
She was president.
Yeah.
And she sent me, before I'd even started, this amazing email that basically said, I'm really looking forward to working with you. Can't believe it. And I was like blown away. Oh my God, this incredible New Zealander sent me an email. And we've stayed in touch and we're very close. But the thing I've seen that's most inspiring for me with Lois is I've never heard her say, "we used to." She's always, what are we doing to build on it? What's the new thinking? How are we going to go and move that forward? How do we evolve what we did in the day where I was super successful? So she's always got that young mind of thinking about how do you move that forward and be, relevant and inclusive, and not being afraid to have the difficult conversation or call someone out.
So not being afraid to be outside of her comfort zone, not afraid of not knowing where we're going, not
Being
afraid of things she's never heard of.
Being open-minded to that change.
Wow. And recently she attended a game in the South Island.
Yeah, and actually our mutual friend, Kerry Mendes, told me, and I went and saw her and we sat together and watched the Silver Ferns play, and, she could literally, her mind, she could coach the Silver Ferns still today. And Dame Nolan Taurua came up and spent some time with Lois afterwards, and Lois pulled out her 5 sheets of notes for Knowles. Here you go, Knowles. Here's your 5 sheets of notes.
Did she take them during the game?
After the game.
After the game.
But pretty much, here you go. Here's the 5 sheets. This is what I've done for you. This is the things that you should be thinking about. And it's not done in any way other than I want to help. I want to see the Silver Ferns be successful, and I want to.
Here's my view.
It's done with araha.
Aye.
Yeah. So that whole amazing. So she's a very special woman, and those are the people that you learn from, right? You can see. You go,
and I guess with life being what it is, which is finite, you don't know when is going to be the last time you get to see a game with Lois. Like, those are pretty. Because I imagine you had to arrange to go down, like you're working. You could have gone, that'd be great if I could do that, but I'm a bit busy and I can't get there.
Yeah, I did. And it was actually funny because I thought I'd get my physical activity and I'd leave the hotel I was staying and I'd walk to the stadium. The problem was when I put the stadium into the maps, I ended up with the wrong location, realised I was in the wrong place. Kerry had held off doing the speeches because they were awarding Lois with her Silver Fern pin. She's ringing me going, "Where are you?" And I'm going, I'm not far away. I'm just tramping through the middle of a field because I'd had to jump the back fence of the stadium to get there as I'm chatting. And then I arrive, my face, I'm all red and sweaty and hot, all because I thought I'd do my physical activity on the way to the stadium. But yeah, that
Former
made it extra
CEO
special.
of Sport New Zealand found leaping over stadium wall.
Arrested by security.
Yeah, genius. Oh, that's so great though, to have those people, to recognise them and to have them, and it's a reciprocal relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And
so she's whānau for you, Lois.
Yes, she is. And yeah, I've been incredibly fortunate to meet some of those really special New Zealanders, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I'm sure Lois feels like that about you, right? She would see you like a daughter, I suspect. Yeah, how amazing. So I read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point, and diversity and inclusion for the American postal system was putting a single female in every postal store because they recognised that women wanted to join the workforce. But those women, isolated as they were in each one, even though there were a multitude of them across America, ended up either having to become one of the boys or becoming kind of this femme fatale type figure. And what they would have been better to do, it turns out, is to put 3 women or 2 women in every second or every third postal system. So you have been, and sadly are still, the only female CEO of an NRL team and female CEO of Rugby Australia. I'm guessing success would look like if there were more women who could lead in that environment, and you saw that there was a pathway that had opened up. Can you just, if we take a step back, how do you feel the health of pathways for women to lead at top level in sports globally is going? Do you think there's improvement? Australia might be like a micro case where it's tricky.
I mean, it's definitely better than what it was, there's no doubt. And I think having someone do it, and for, all of us to see someone doing it and be able to aspire to doing it makes a difference.
It does make a difference.
It just does.
It does.
I'm really disappointed that there hasn't been another female CEO in the NRL. I mean, I said I was happy to be the first. I didn't want to be the only. And I think that's, that's disappointing. But, there is so many more opportunities, and I think we are societally much more open-minded, and the opportunities are there. It doesn't mean it's easy.
No, it's not easy, is it? Like,
more.
would you advise a woman to take on the CEO role of another NRL club in good conscience?
Absolutely. And I'd say to them, I'd be asking these questions to make sure you've got the support around you and a board and a chair that have got your back, and that they genuinely have the support, and a head coach that would be open-minded, and all of those things. I mean, you wouldn't do it blindly. There'd be some NRL clubs that I'd say absolutely would be great to go back and work in now, and there'd be some I'd look at and say, I don't think that's where I'd be going right at the moment. It's difficult for all CEOs, let alone being a female CEO in that situation. So yeah, I absolutely do. I have to believe that it's better. I have to believe that there's more opportunities. And my driver, Petra, has always been for ultimately women to have choice.
Yeah.
And I get really uncomfortable when people say, the aspiration has to be the CEO, because actually maybe it's not.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Because maybe it's that I want to be, because I never had children, it meant I never had that as a consideration. So if I needed to work at 9 o'clock at night, if I needed to go to that after work social function, I needed to work all Saturday and Sunday, that was never an issue, right? Because I could do that, and Greg was deeply understanding of that. But when you've got a family, that is different, because you do want to be at the running races or the school prize giving or the bath time or book reading. So you have to have that in your consideration. So maybe being on the senior leadership team, holding a really significant role that does have a little bit more flexibility and being some more available is a better option.
Yeah.
But the choice to go, senior leadership's what I want, or actually, no, I do want to be the CEO, so my life might be having a husband or a partner that's more supportive, or it might be having a nanny, because that's how I'm going to set my life up. But going in open-minded and understanding that is the thing. I think that's important.
I really believe in that free will and that choice as well, I think. And partly that's why I let my hair go grey, because I think women should be allowed to be and have whatever hair colour they like.
That's right.
And still be on telly or off telly, in power or out of power, like actually just be relevant or irrelevant, whatever they choose. And we don't get to choose everything. And we haven't talked really about your alopecia areata, have we? Which, I mean, we haven't. There's two more. We have to talk about diversity and inclusion. We can't stop recording before we do talk about that, because I want to talk about oil and water. But as a CEO, you're in the limelight. It's hard work. Look, I'm looking at Christopher Luxon. It's hard work. I looked at Jacinda Ardern. It's hard work. You are in the spotlight, and there are people who are, their baseline position is, I hate you, I don't support you, or I love you, I support you, and everything in between.
That's right. And it is hard, because not only in politics are you trying to move New Zealand forward, you also have to do that in a way that tries to get re-elected. So that's
very difficult.
Very difficult to keep people happy so they vote for you again, unlike being a CEO where you can actually make hard decisions, and as long as the board's going to support you, you don't have to worry about getting re-elected. So it is interesting and different. I think the thing that is, no one comments on Chris's suit.
No one does.
And his tie yesterday was blue, and today it's red, and tomorrow it's green.
No, it was never red,
thing.
But it won't be green either. It would just be pale blue, light blue, dark blue.
But, like with Jacinda, it was like,
hair.
what designer? Well, she doesn't hair, yeah, exactly. But Jacinda was like, what's she wearing? What designer? Is it appropriate for her to be wearing New Zealand designers?
She wears
Are
big
they
earrings.
giving her big earrings? Is she? Her hair's tied up, it's not tied up.
Are those your real teeth?
So we just have to accept that.
Culturally, we pay a lot of attention to how women look.
And if you looked at my social media feed, 50% of it would be, what am I wearing? How does my hair look? How fat am I? How overweight? That is 50% of, on any given day, judgment over how I look or how I'm dressed.
Whoa.
And men do not deal with that. They do not have that in their feed. Probably 10% of it would be in
and maybe they also
Prime
don't
Ministers.
care. So is this woman doing it to one another? I mean, I know men comment terribly on women.
Men, totally, as well.
So it's cultural, right? This is the cultural setup we have is a lot of a woman's okayness and not okayness, which comes back to our young women, is based on how they look.
Yes, but what I would say is, if you turn that into the positive, when you're sitting in a room of black and grey suits and you're the only one that can wear a emerald green dress, you can own that. So if you want to make it about I think it shouldn't be about how you look.
Delight in your difference.
Can
okay.
own it if you want to, because it is a point of difference. I like fashion, I like dressing, I like wearing and being sort of different. Young woman, I got some great advice, is always overdress so that you look older or slightly more mature or be taken seriously. Is that old-fashioned advice? Probably. Still think it works pretty well.
Yeah, can work.
And, I just think it's a point of difference. But it doesn't mean that as a female leader, you don't need to be aware of it and know that you're going to cop some real criticism of your appearance.
So we communicate visually, right? If you don't wash and clean your teeth, it communicates both in a smell sense and in a visual sense. If you do prepare your attire and your personhood in a certain way, it communicates. So whether or not we agree with the edges of it, the extreme edges of it, it actually does communicate. You decided to let people know that you had alopecia, which is a genetic condition that you share with your brother. What's your brother Ryan's experience of alopecia been in comparison to yours? Like, have you swapped notes?
Yeah, we have.
Tell me.
And it's hilarious because he is a really handsome guy who totally owns and rocks not having any hair, and he's got no eyebrows or eyelashes, although we're both he's going through a phase of having the odd eyebrow growing again, which is slightly odd, but he is not judged for that. In fact, he's sort of the Michael Klim. It's that kind of like look. Right. If I had sat here today doing this podcast without my wig on, it would be really confronting for people. And I look very different, and it's not a core expectation of how a woman looks. And should I own that more? I do with my friends and family. I don't do that with my business colleagues and my wider networks because I don't feel comfortable, and this is who I am. This is how I look, and I like this. You know? So it is different. It is just different.
And it's not your job to retrain everybody either. Like if I put makeup on today for you, for the audience, I put a full face of makeup on, and for a month I haven't worn makeup. I've put some mascara on sometimes. I'm like, should I just not wear it? And I'm like, well, this is professional. Like this is.
But does it make you feel better?
At times, I love the choice. That's
like me. I'm the same as you. Over Christmas, beach, nothing. No wig, no swim, surf, friends, family, guests coming around, put my wig on, just because that's what I feel comfortable with, and that's how I want to present myself, particularly when I meet people for the first time. And the same, when if I don't put any eyeliner on because I haven't got any eyelashes, I look seriously like I'm dying.
I know. If I don't wear makeup to work, people are like, are you okay? Are you feeling
okay?
well?
That's right.
But if I never wore makeup, because I intersect with women who never wear makeup, that's their face and they look fantastic, but it's how they are. They're makeup free and I love it. It's just not where I'm at right now. What difference did it make when you let the public know and your colleagues know that you had alopecia, so they knew it wasn't the stress of the job that was making your hair fall out? You didn't have cancer. They didn't have to worry about that. And bonus benefit, anybody else who has the same condition goes, oh my God, there she is. She's the CEO of XYZ. I can do cool things too.
Yeah, and I think that all of those reasons was the reason why I decided to talk about it.
Far out. So how did it feel for you? Was there any difference for you, like just managing it personally and privately and saying, hey guys, this is where we're at?
It was really hard that when I actually did the story the first time. It's a big personal sharing detail.
It is.
And I suppose initially you think every single person you see is thinking, oh my gosh, she's got a wig on. Oh my gosh, she's got a wig on. Oh my gosh, she's got a wig on. Now I don't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
It never even showed. Like, and most people don't think about it once they realise.
They're just like, hi, Raelene.
Hi, Raelene, well, like, whatever. So, that's hard. And I do genuinely think it is another way that I could help support a community of young people, young women, who do have a different experience around alopecia than what men do. It is not the same. It's another different hurdle. And like you say, if I can say, look, this is how I've managed it and this is how you can actually still do what you want to do, then that's
This
great.
doesn't define the whole of you. This isn't. And do you know what? It's like 11:45. So I'm going to ask. Diversity and inclusion. You hit it hard in Australia with Israel Folau. You hit the hornet's nest of a whole bag of hornets. But diversity and inclusion, I've heard you talked about are tricky bedfellows. Can we talk about when you mention, like, we want to be diverse and we want to be inclusive, that they are a bit more like oil and water than we realise?
Yeah, and you need to help your leaders with some training and experience to understand what that actually looks like in reality.
Because let's just break it down. Diversity is everybody is welcome and all opinions are welcome and all the whole gambit is welcome. And that's all the difference is present. And inclusion is everybody is welcome, right? So diversity might be everybody's here and we can see everybody, and inclusion is everybody's allowed. But we have ended up in society in a place where your ideas and thoughts are allowed as long as they align with mine.
Correct, that's right.
But these ideas that I have deemed to be bad or evil or wrong are not allowed, which is anti-diversity and inclusion. Like the tolerance movement is very intolerant of stuff it doesn't agree with.
Yes, and I think how you create safe spaces so that people can share their personal experiences or personal views in a way that helps everyone learn and be more understanding of what it's like to be a diverse New Zealander, a non-mainstream or an immigrant into New Zealand, or from Māori or Pacifica background, and what that looks like. And I think New Zealand's come an incredibly long way.
We have.
And I'm deeply proud of that, and I hope that it continues because I think we're a better country for it. And there's lots of learnings because of that te ao Māori approach we take to things, how that also can help us deal with other diverse cultures in our environment. So calm, that I love, like a pōwhiri or a welcome, and sit down and actually get to know one another first.
Whakawhanaungatanga, just become family. It's the making of family, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And we do that before the day starts. We're in Māori culture, te ao Māori, but actually in the Western culture, we get into business and we have a whole day and then we network drinks at the end of it.
Oh, yeah, interesting. It's upside down.
It's upside down.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And it's not better or worse, it's just as different, right?
No, and
let's
you can
do both.
learn from it. Let's do both, right? But you can learn from it, and that's why it's good. So I think actually what I would say is I think there's always aspirationally a way to present your different opinion in a half glass full way. So it's not that I'm going to attack you because I think that you don't understand or you don't know. It's actually
You're wrong.
From my perspective, this is my experience. And so for us in the Samoan culture, our priority is God and our mothers. That's the way we roll. Mm-hmm. So how do I think about that in an inclusive environment, a team environment, and a work culture, or that can be respectful of that? So that's why I behave differently. That's why I'm deferential to you as a senior female. That's why church on Sundays is absolutely the most important thing and sacred. Yeah. And understanding that, I think, is important. So it's the desire around diversity to have everyone there is important. But inclusivity can be very twee unless you're actually prepared to commit to provide an environment where people can feel that they can be themselves.
Which is going to be a little bit inconvenient and is going to involve some change and therefore probably some discomfort. You're not going to be able to do things, and that person isn't available on a Sunday morning, or you can't swear in front of them with certain swear words because it's actually physically painful for that person, or other things. I guess I'm fascinated that as a culture we are in a place, it feels like at times, where it's going against our own authenticity to be friends with people who fundamentally believe different things to us. Whereas I think our humanity is robust enough and stretchy enough to be in the same room and to be respectful.
And it's two-way, right? Because I'm going to support you going to church on Sunday, but I don't want you to judge me for not going to church on Sunday.
And I'm not going to.
because that's not my bag. That's
Yeah.
not what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to support
yeah.
you and what you do and
Yeah.
your diverse views and what's important to you.
Mm.
But also don't be judgmental of me because I choose not to do that, or, whatever the situation is.
Yep. No, brilliant. Like for me, it was the vax, non-vax. Like there were people who were like, I will never speak to my auntie again because she chose not to get vaccinated. And I'm like, wow, you're choosing an ideology over a person when you can disagree with their behaviour, but they are still your whangaunga. Like they are. And we do upset one another, right? But how do we allow our humanity to stretch beyond our behaviours?
By being more tolerant. And it's education. It's understanding why you're like that, why it's important to you, what benefit you get out of it. Because I might move my perspective slightly, or I'll approach something differently, or I think it's an important in leadership role to actually understand the difference between diversity and inclusion. We tend to chuck them into one policy and go, tick, we've got that. But actually the skill to provide an environment where people can be diverse and feel included is actually quite skillful. And not everyone in our environments necessarily has that skill.
And we could take a step on the path, and as long as we follow it up with more steps, that's good. Raelene Castle, thanks for running Sport New Zealand and High Performance Sport New Zealand. Thanks for running both of those things and running between Auckland and Wellington every week and being engaged in a government department and watching carefully what you say. What would your 80-year-old self say to you today? Like if she was sitting opposite you, she had a book beside her, she just had woken up from a lovely nap, what would she say? What would she say to you?
Keep being curious. Keep being curious.
I suspect she will. Like her mentor, Dame Lois Muir. Do you think of yourself as courageous?
Oh, I don't wake up every morning and go, man, I'm courageous. But I suppose, if you're honest and immodest, yes, I have been courageous.
Honest and immodest. I like that. Yeah, you have been courageous. It's awesome.
But I don't always think about it like that.
No. Well, we don't always think about ourselves, do we? Yay.
No.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.